Hey, welcome to a new episode. Welcome to the next episode. Boom.
I listen to only
Boom.
country music, so that means nothing to me. I feel like you're doing something that is something from music,
Yeah.
but I only listen to country music.
90s hip hop. Always
Yeah.
referencing it. It's always in my head.
Nope. If it was
Welcome-
a Travis Tritt song, I'd get it like
I have a
lickety-split.
Travis Tritt flannel.
You do. It's my favorite.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, welcome to another episode. We're going to talk about today, right off the bat, let's go after perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
I-
We really should talk about it. It's
Well, I think in relevance to what gets us stuck on the fence a little bit is perfectionism. So I was watching a TED Talk, and the lady that was doing the TED Talk, which it was really good, but she was talking about obviously perfectionism, and she gave this illustration. She was at a soccer tournament with her 10-year-old kid, and the person next to her, the parent probably, leans over. Here's a quote: "These games are a waste of our time. It's not like any of these kids are going to play professional sports anytime." So she's at this. So that's the response, and she brings this up, and I thought, what has us in a unique season of life, because all of us, we've not lived for 200 years, 300 years, so we're not always able to feel what previous generations thought and saw. We just have to read about it. What is apparent about our current culture is that we're unaware that we are evaluating people and things at levels that is not historically normal.
well, we're Instagram filtering everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
Or Pinterest. Pinterest.
So what's become incredibly unique about us, even as parents, is we're evaluating a situation as, is it the perfect environment? Are these the elite whatever? And that's how we're assembling, rather than, hey, it's just good for a kid to be outside kicking a ball, having fun,
Being on a team.
being
Being coached by someone who's not their parent. Learning a new skill.
So here's the message, and this is just an example of perfectionism. The message to kids: if you can't perform at a high level, don't play.
Yeah. I will say though, when I first read that quote though, my initial thought was not, oh, that's a terrible perspective, because of course it's good for them. My initial thought was, I wonder how many games that day that parent had been at, and maybe they were just done.
They might have been, but because I've had a similar example where I was at a football game, and I was bringing up in a positive sense, hey, and I forget what happened, but what just happened? No big deal. They're having fun. They're having a blast. It's not like any of these kids are going to be professional athletes. This is just fun.
Yeah.
And the parent looked at me defeated.
You just dashed all their hopes and dreams.
As a thought, because they're like, well, my kid is actually pretty good at football. And I was like,
He might be.
yeah, but the chances. So
You reality checked
it's-
them.
So this lady in this TED Talk said something that captivated me. And if you're right now listening and you're a perfectionist, and I'll get into some signs of perfectionism here in a minute, but
Did you make signs? Or are you going to read them?
you're hilarious. Here's a quote. We've lost our awareness of the power of incremental gains.
Huh. That's good.
And I agree with that, where that's why we don't want incremental gains. We want fast forward, warp speed, elite, high level, whatever. That's why, especially in our area, even in the Rapid City area, baseball's huge, especially in kids sports.
Yeah.
Parents won't say it out loud. Some will actually will, but most won't. That they think that it's a good baseball season if your kid makes it to the majors, which is, in our terms, that's like the highest level of little kid baseball. And so we think it's cool, but it becomes better if your kid makes it to the championship, whatever.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know what, you're stinking 7 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you don't have your face on a screen. You're just outside, and it's good. So, and incremental gains. So I thought this is profound. At least for those right now listening, when you're a perfectionist, you're not cool with incremental gains because it feels lazy if I were to tell you, yeah, but it was good enough.
But, and not just athletics, I think weight loss. I think wanting to be good at a new hobby or skill, like we want that instantaneous, because that's what our world is right now, though. If I want to learn about something that would have taken me a college degree beforehand, I can watch a TED Talk on it or listen to a podcast, and then I'm like, I know I can go into surgery right now and perform an operation.
Let me be open. Okay, vulnerable conversations I have with my wife in private.
On video now, recorded.
Right. So it's now been about a year and a half-ish since I started working on what I was eating. And I lost a significant amount of weight. I think at peak, around 75-ish pounds. But then we went on vacation. I got off the diet. Vacation always like derails this train. I just want you to know.
Well, we go to places like Kansas City and
Right.
Florida with really good restaurants. It's hard.
So I struggle with trying to do everything at the highest level of excellence always. And so that's why this speaks to me because, full disclosure, I gained a little bit of the weight back, not even close to all of it at all. Like not some, but I got down on myself for not being at the peak.
Right.
Knowing that there's incremental gains. And I have to actually tell myself, David, you are far healthier than you were a year ago.
But the back and forth is a natural rhythm of life. I want to
Right.
bring something up though, because you just made perfectionism and excellence coexist. Like you like said them as though they were the same thing in that sentence.
Okay.
But I don't think that you think that they are the same thing.
No, they're not.
I know, like in our family and in our ministry, we talk a lot about do everything with excellence, do your very best, don't do it with perfection, and you kind of interchange them just now. But talk to us about that real
Sure.
quick, though, and then dive into this because I think I think a lot of us want to operate with excellence. We want to do our very best, but we end up like transposing perfection onto it.
The umbrella statement would be perfectionism is an inappropriate expectation. Excellence is an appropriate expectation. And so the difference between the two are one is unhealthy, one is healthy. Excellence is the absence of laziness and the awareness and presence of doing what should be done for the sake of doing your very best, of being aware of how your actions affect you and they affect other people. Being aware that let's talk about our homes right now. Like a perfect home versus an excellent home. A perfectly clean home versus an excellently cleaned home. We begin to now, okay, that makes sense. Like I did this with excellence. I did a good job. I made an effort that was good and not lazy versus there is a piece of dust or my kid just pulled that chair out a little bit more than it should have been pulled out, all that kind of stuff. Perfectionism is an inappropriate expectation placed on yourself and other people.
Oh, it feels like even just talking about it, it feels so restraining.
Legalism.
Yeah.
It's restrictive. It's demanding people around you almost be godlike or that you be godlike. And excellence is, I'm going to do this well. I'm going to plan. I'm going to prepare. I'm going to be involved. And that's why I think we bring up perfectionism. So here, a guy named Bob Goldman is a researcher.
Bob Goldman sounds like a researcher name. It does.
So he decided to study elite athletes. Here's the question he asked. I love this question. Would you take a drug? He asked these elite athletes this. Would you take a drug that would guarantee you a gold medal, but it will kill you in 5 years?
Wow.
Yeah. So just ask the question. It's what researchers do. Put you in a interesting situation. Would you take a drug that would guarantee you a gold medal? And these are all elite athletes who wanted gold medals, but it would kill you in 5 years. The response was over 50% of the athletes said yes.
That is bananas.
So some of you are skeptical. You're like, well, that must have been a bunch of crazies. Well, Bob Goldman actually thought the same thing. He's like, they must not have interpreted the question correctly.
I asked it
It
wrong.
it must be seasonal. Maybe it's even cultural in a sense of, maybe it was just a unique setting. So what he decided to do was, he was so shocked, he repeated the project over 5 times. Wow. Asking another group of elite athletes, would you take a drug that would guarantee you a gold medal, but will kill you in 5 years? And half of the athletes every single time were willing to die in order to achieve that one perfect performance.
So one of the things that I think is probably an obvious, it goes hand in hand when you're talking about perfectionism, is there's often reasons that maybe we don't think about unpacking, or we don't even recognize that we would do that. Yeah. But like, I can think of times where I wanted to be perfect because I just wanted to ease the burden of the people around me, or I wanted to prove that I was good enough. And that's what makes me so sad about all of that, is that it probably comes from a place of sadness or trauma, or just something that actually, if that would be reconciled, you would probably stop spending your life hating yourself and being so hard on yourself. It really grieves me, because that probably comes from, or trying to be good enough and then becoming obsessed with being the best. It makes me sad, because it bends more towards.
So what it's done is, it's got a lot of people on the fence, and those people on the fence don't feel like they're lazy. They would be like, I'm not lazy. I just need to wait so I can do it well. I'm waiting till I can do it well. And I fight this, because I want to do everything so well. Now, there's multiple reasons.
You were like that with dating.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Where I want to do it so well that I'll sometimes drag my feet, and I won't accept the incremental gains. They just seem too small, or like I'm doing this imperfectly. Where part of me almost like becoming a healthier man has been, but saying that was good enough for today is not bad, but it felt bad. Let me show you or tell you some signs of perfectionism, because there's a bunch of people going, good thing I'm not a perfectionist. Here's signs. This is what psychology says about this. All or nothing thinking. I literally just described that about myself. All or nothing. I'm either all the way in, or I'm not doing anything at all. That's perfectionist thinking. Now, no, some of you are like, one of these might be true about you. So we're going more, are the majority of these true about you? All or nothing thinking, being highly critical. Some of your most critical friends are dealing with perfectionism. So we watch, we analyze, and we say it out loud. Feeling pushed by fear. That you're a perfectionist, you've got to do the best always, because you're afraid, like you were mentioning, you're afraid of letting someone down. You're afraid of like not being approved of. You're afraid of something failing, so you got to do it perfectly. Having unrealistic standards. This really comes out of how you were raised a lot of times.
Oh, sure.
You might have grown up in a home where you had unrealistic standards placed on you.
Yes.
So what that did to you is not necessarily, I'm never going to do that with my kids. It's probably, though, made you a perfectionist, which means, think about the way that you talk to your kids or your significant other, whatever. Focusing only on results.
Not the journey.
Not the journey. It's like what some of us who think this way are like, yeah, the journey's fine, but did we get there? Did we achieve the goal? Did we get the medal? Did we accomplish what needed to be accomplished? And understanding that actually it's not just good leadership, it's good thinking that journey is good. It's worth it. The process is worth it. It's good. Feeling depressed by unmet goals. To where maybe you had something good happen in your life, but you didn't check all the boxes off, and you're down because all the boxes didn't get checked. I feel like I'm describing me, but fear of failure. Perfectionists like to limit the amount of failures that they have on their list of failures.
Well, and that's paralyzing.
Oh yeah. So a way to avoid failure is to avoid is to be a perfectionist, which in and of itself is a failure. Procrastination kind of fits into that. Defensiveness. When someone says, hey, let's say you're doing a review, you're being your annual review or your whatever at work.
Or a spouse even giving feedback or a friend. Yeah.
And you get defensive. Sometimes your defensiveness, not always, but sometimes your defensiveness is this idea in your head that, well, if I admit to this, if I'm not defensive, it's going to reveal that I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Or I didn't do a perfect job.
Or you're trying to protect the image. All of these, it's funny, these signs of perfectionism, it's actually like a cycle, like almost the stages of grief. This is like the stages of perfectionism.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, if someone listening knew me in high school or middle school, probably even elementary school, maybe a little bit in college, I was a people pleaser, and I was a perfectionist. I dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's and had like highlighted to-do lists. And really, I wanted to make life easy for everybody. And I was so tangled and rigid. And I saw myself in all of those things. And I don't even know when or how it was. Probably when Hayden came home. We brought Hayden home from the hospital. But recognized that life, everything is fluid. And there's no way to get it all like done perfectly. Like I couldn't sustain that pace. And it was hurting me in every possible, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I remember letting go of some of that, and like the house doesn't have to be completely perfectly clean before I go to bed, and I won't stay up all night thinking about it. I think that there are ways to start relieving yourself of that and still live doing everything as well as you can, but not requiring of yourself almost inhumane levels.
That's the interesting part of perfectionism. Every personality trait deals with it, but at different places.
Sure.
Like you might be, if you work, construction, or you want this order in your life, kind of a thing, and you think that's got to be cut perfectly, lined up perfectly, cleaned perfectly. But I even think about our daughter Ellie, who is an amazing artist.
Yeah, she is.
I mean.
Which is wild because neither one of us are.
Right. She's amazing. Like she'll paint stuff and I'll just stare at it and like, how did you get that onto that canvas?
Yeah.
But her perspective is it's not perfect.
Oh yeah, I messed up so many times.
She's actually thrown stuff away that I've even, I in my inside, I'm mad about. Like,
I've pulled stuff out of the trash before.
So, but what I'm saying is that's not like the cut the perfect angle kind of thinker. She's creative, and there's some loose. Let's just get my thoughts and feelings on this canvas. Yep. But she'll even evaluate it by perfectionism.
100%.
Even some of the introverts who are typically known as very loyal individuals, but sometimes they're looking for the perfectly safe environment.
Yes.
And trying to create that and be around that. And then you've got people who think they can lead perfectly or think perfectly or line everything up perfectly or you're talking about you love to love people. That's a part of like this justice oriented piece to you, but you can't love everyone as perfectly as what you might say needs to happen. It's perfectionism leaks into every personality, and our fear really oftentimes, whatever our fear is, whatever your fear is, fuels that.
Yeah.
And so if you're dealing with perfectionism, is it not that you just stop having certain expectations? Is I think you begin to look at what am I afraid of?
Oh yeah. I think for sure. And I think too, what is that perfectionism keeping you from? Like count the cost of it? Because I think that there are times where like if you want a perfect scenario in dating, or I don't have friends because I've been wounded by friends, or because I don't have the time to be able to give them that I think that I should. So then what do you have? You have a life of isolation or a life of not doing stuff. And that's not what God has called us to. And so as believers, I think I pulled this up because this is a verse that I read all the time to myself. Colossians 3:23-24. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward, it is the Lord Christ you are serving. Because I think remembering that God is with us and has equipped us, and it is our stewardship of all of that to go do it, but it is not perfection that he's after. It's relationship. It's the process.
Yeah.
And starting to kind of recognizing, you're right, friendships are hard and sometimes they're messy, but it's worth having that community and in everything in life. That's what has changed me. Like dishes in the sink does not mean my kids are going to grow up, dishes in the sink before I go to bed. They're not going to wake up and go, Mom, never had dishes done. Like, I think just loosening some of that so we can really be intentional about the things God did say were priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is really, there's some people right now probably twitching because they're afraid that this leads to a slippery slope of laziness.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I think we got to get over that.
Well, and maybe
really
for them it does. So invite people into your life to help you with that, because that may be their reality. And so do something about that.
That might be like if maybe someone's listening and going, I don't deal with perfectionism at all anywhere in my life. I might say, then you might be lazy. Right? Because if you don't have to fight this anywhere,
yep.
That's part of what Ellie's dealing with. What we know is when she paints, there's no laziness about that.
No.
So that's where your perfectionism, or at least your battle against it, is revealing. Sometimes, in a good sense, you're like, you really find this important.
Yeah,
this is important to you.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I think of when we dated. This was something I struggled with. I was in an environment, specifically in college, where I had professors telling me this: "Hey, you're never going to be the kind of pastor you need to be unless you get married." And so I began to think that's what I had to be perfect at dating. And if I was perfect at dating, and meaning I find the exact right one person on this planet Earth that God's got for me, I got to perfectly find that person.
Got to scour the earth.
And then I've got to perfectly treat that person perfectly so that we have this perfect relationship so that I can do for God what God's asked me to do perfectly. So what that all that translated into, so you and I met, and I liked you a lot, fell in love with you, but there still was this thing in my head going, but what if you aren't doing this perfectly? What if this is not the person God wants you to have? What if you're missing that person? But I'm like, I love this person, but what if I am missing that person?
This, yeah.
And so I kept everyone I ever even went on a date with, just like, I don't know yet if this is the perfect situation.
You know what's funny though? You do that with gift cards too.
Oh yeah, I hate gift cards.
Because you get a gift card and then you're like, how
do I perfectly handle this?
And what if I want something that's more than the gift card? Or what if I buy that and then I regret it? Yeah. But I think that most of us, you're right, do have areas of that. And obviously dating and relationships are far more consequential than whether you buy a hat or socks, at Scheels. But I think that calling it out for really reviewing how you're maybe walking this out, and areas that you can invite some community into it and say, I am really rigid in this area, or I'm operating out of a lot of fear in this area, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah. So let's land it with this. I talk about our current American culture right now is everything needs to be elite. Your kid needs to be elite. Everything has to be elite. Your house has to, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and now it's Valentine's. Your house has to model all the holidays in an elite, perfect.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
But there's all these things, like we all have these, like it's got to be elite, the best. So that's in our culture, but it wasn't originally in our culture.
Ooh.
And the lady in this TED Talk that I watched, she brought this up. So I do not claim this, but this is profound to me. As a nation, here's how we started. This is in our language. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, right? So that's our building block. And what she brought up, more perfect, better than it was, not perfect. It does not say in order to form a perfect union, a more perfect union, incremental growth and improvement. The building block of our nation was not that we would be elite and we've always got to maintain the elite status. It's that we would experience and live this thought, I need to incrementally grow. We as a nation need to incrementally get better. And I think that's how a perfectionist can say, be cool with incremental growth today.
I think that I think that is God's heart for us, is to get better every day and to help each other get better every day. And that's what I love that.
So if you didn't do perfect today or yesterday and you're lamenting over your lack of perfection, or if your kid didn't make something, or if your kid doesn't even like soccer, and whatever it is, it doesn't mean that you've missed something, you failed, you blah, blah. No, incremental growth. That's why I was chatting with a mom who was struggling that the coach wasn't playing her son as often as they felt like their son should be played. And I said, okay, no problem. And she looked at me like I didn't care. I said, no, it sounds like this season for your son is a time to grow in character, not athleticism. And I saw a light bulb go on going, oh, wait a minute, incremental growth. That every year isn't a way to get a better athlete, but there's this character building.
Yes.
So hopefully that's helped some of the perfectionists.
That's so good.
Get off the fence. Stop being a perfectionist. Look at the areas that you demand absolute perfection. And
From yourself or others.
From yourself and others. From yourself and others. From your environment, your workplaces, your school, all that kind of stuff. And say, what am I afraid of? And let's start getting cool with just getting better a little bit more.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks for listening, watching. We love you so stinking much.
Bye, friends.